Hello everyone, and welcome to another Super Gump video. Today, we're going to take a look at what we feel are the top 5 best Dreamcast games. Number 5, Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure was one of the better launch titles for the Sega Dreamcast. The first full Sonic game to be in 3D, it represented an evolution in the series for better or worse. What the first game brought to the table that many longtime fans were unable to agree on was the element of exploration. Wide-open 3D environments, for the time, were not universally recognized as a welcome addition to the series. On top of this, it suffered from an unpolished feel with camera issues and glitches straight out of the burgeoning mid-90s 3D platformer scene. I thought the game was good. Many didn't. Lucky for them, then, that right before the Sega Dreamcast's untimely death, Sonic Team released a sequel. Trimmed down and much more focused on the hallmark element of the Sonic series, of course, being speed, Sonic Adventure 2 is a game head and shoulders above the one that preceded it. Widely regarded for at least a decade as the best 3D iteration in the series, Sonic Adventure 2 is a polished and aesthetically pleasing game, especially but not only because it was released on the Dreamcast hardware. It has tighter controls than the first adventure, arguably more memorable levels, and the fantastic music that the Sonic series is known for. Number 4, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. What Dreamcast list would be complete without this game? Marvel vs. Capcom 2 brought arcade fighting goodness to home console like many games before it, but what it did that was so spectacular was just making everything so damn perfect. The combos, the screen-eating special moves, the mashing together of two of the most unique universes in all of fiction. And it all worked. It worked in tandem to create what is arguably one of the most spectacular 2D fighters of them all. The 3-on-3 team versus team element gave players very many layers of strategy to use, and made it even more difficult to properly prepare for your opponent because you had to plan for any number of given combinations that were possible. The game is now available on many different devices, but there was a time when Dreamcast was the only way to play, and because of the hours upon hours of nostalgia that this game bestowed upon many of us, the awesome brawler earns its spot at number 4. Number 3, Phantasy Star Online. Only just recently, MMORPGs are beginning to really enter into the console market. Whether because of hardware limitations, the difficulty of figuring out the logistics of online play, or simply because of limited default input options, massively multiplayer online games have remained squarely in the realm of PC gaming for most of their short existence. Strange to consider, then, that the Sega Dreamcast played host to one of the best representations of this young genre. Phantasy Star Online wasn't just good for a console MMO at the time, it truly challenged the way that these games were designed, something that few of them even do to this day. While the current MMORPG landscape is riddled with Me Too, WoW clones, and the foundation laid by EverQuest still looms large, Phantasy Star Online put us in a unique setting with action-oriented combat and very good music. The feeling of community was palpable and has carried the game for quite a long time. It still goes on today in some form or another, and there are even those who have found ways to continue to play the Dreamcast version. Number 2, Skies of Arcadia. As a system, the Dreamcast was pretty lacking in great RPGs. From a quality standpoint, I think most people would agree it was probably the most poorly represented genre on the system. Sure, there was Grandia 2, which was good in its own right, but the Dreamcast unfortunately spent most of its life lacking a truly great entry in the genre. In late 2000, the system finally got that truly great game. Overworks released Skies of Arcadia, or Eternal Arcadia as it was known in Japan, to high expectations that critics almost unanimously agreed it successfully met or exceeded. Skies of Arcadia is a favorite for many on the system. The sense of exploration and scale on hand is second to nothing, barring maybe Shenmue, that the Dreamcast had to offer. Sadly, the game didn't fare well from a commercial perspective, in part due to the Dreamcast's relatively small install base, as well as the fact that by the time the game released, most people knew it was the end for Sega's final home console. Thankfully, it saw a somewhat more successful release on the GameCube a couple years later, and enjoys a cult status to this day. Here's hoping for a more modern HD release at some point in the future. And finally, number 1, Soulcalibur. To be honest, what else could have topped the list? Soulcalibur is what some would consider the most important title on the Dreamcast, bar none. Representing third-party support from one of the biggest Japanese publishers in Namco, the game got the Dreamcast started off right. called everything from great to the single best 3D fighter of all time, the original Soulcalibur offered up a simple premise: weapons-based combat confined to small, squared arenas. Combat is exceptionally fluid, and the game is both easily accessible to newcomers and chock full of depth for those looking for it. This game was and is still great, and it was the start of something great too. The sequel ended up being a fantastic game with measurable improvements where needed when compared to the original, and it even featured Link on Nintendo's console in what was the coolest cameo of the 3 versions on offer. But really, nothing can quite ever live up to the original. Soul Blade for the PlayStation 1 laid the groundwork, but Soulcalibur 1 truly perfected it. Okay guys, that's all from us. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, and thanks again very much for checking out what we had to say. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing here, and most of all, stay Gump. Have a good one.